Oi, you know what time it is? You're tuned in listening to Joy That Aussie Metal Guy. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his content when it drops. And remember, stay brutal, you mad dogs. Roof.
G'day, how you all going? It's Jai, that Aussie Metal Guy here with Crank.com. So tonight, wherever you are in the world, it's a great pleasure that we're getting to have a chat with Allegaeon. We have the original vocalist, Ezra Haynes, who's kind of come back in the band after his 2015 departure following the Elements of the Infinite album. Replacing a singer is no easy task. So the fact that you were able to kind of come back into the band, into the fold, is absolute ripper. Loving the new single and looking forward to this album, the Ossuary Lens, that does, of course, drop April 4th through Metal Blade Records. Ezra, thank you so much for joining me, my friend.
What's up, man? How fun. I love this.
Absolute pleasure, man. So, in a sense, welcome back to Allegaeon. How does it feel, man, coming back in to rejoin the band after a few years away?
Dude, it's incredible, man. It's kind of cheesy to say it, but every day I wake up and I'm like, am I in a dream? You know what I mean? Because I was completely removed mentally, emotionally. Like I really dipped out there for a hot minute, and to come back into it and like really have this redemption arc, it's a very, very good feeling, dude.
Yeah, was that time away kind of reached really good for you though to recharge the batteries mentally as well? Because it can be such a fucking busy time. You're always on the road, dropping albums, and you're flat out. And sometimes it can just drain the actual absolute heck out of you. People don't realize how much time you're away from your families, your friends,
Yeah.
your day-to-day routine. So it can kind of fucking drag you down a bit too.
It's quite the reoccurring topic as of late, but it was very, very healthy, very, very good. I left because I had a pretty big drinking problem, really. And I spent the following year after that, 2016, still kind of spiraling and shit. And then eventually, I just got this kind of second wind, and I was like, I need to make some changes. So I hopped into a program, I had some good support system, and bro, it's like as of last December, it's been 8 years sober on that. To answer your question, yeah, buddy. To answer your question about that, it's like it's exactly that, a fresh breath of air, dude. It's like going into it is incredible. And I think what makes it especially incredible is like it was so exhausting and so just took so much out of me because I was just dehydrated. I was treating myself unfairly. Your mental starts going after a while. And dude, I wasn't there. There was no passion. I was just a corpse, really. And so, in hindsight, it's like, man, to see the growth that's happened just mentally, the confidence kind of come back to kind of hop on the right side of the whole deal, and to have like this newfound perspective. It's like, going on tour or communicating, networking with people, chatting with you, like I carry much more value with it, and I can remember it, and I can, foster these new relationships and stuff. Like, so I don't know, man, it's like being born again, really.
I totally get it, dude. I made some changes. I don't drink, and I had a family member of mine who was an alcoholic who kind of give up alcohol as well. And I give up alcohol about 3 years ago, and it's such a liberating feeling as well. Going to these shows, remembering everything, all the conversations, and kind of you become more motivated, switched on, healthy, the way you think, and it's becoming more accepted in our community. It used to be a thing like when I was younger, you'd fucking down the alcohol, take a handful of whatever else you could get, go to these shows off your guts, and you barely remember it. But as I've gotten older, I've given up the alcohol. I've found that I've had more motivation. I'm more switched on when I come to the shows, and everything kind of clicks into place. And I struggle a lot with mental health anyway. But not
Yeah.
having that alcohol in my life has fucking been so much better.
Dude, a game changer. It's been quite the story. It's very liberating to be able to go to these shows that, death metal's typically in some kind of huge bar. And it's
Yeah.
like as your band gets more popular, the booze becomes more readily available. And, that's cool and all, but it's just, there's got to be a point for some people. Some people are better at it than others. I'm a terrible drunk. So it's like
Same.
for me to like, be on the right side of things, feeling good and looking for the world's best Shirley Temple, like I don't know, man. I couldn't be in a better
I think
position
there's
than I am
nothing
now.
fucking more metal than going to the bar and getting a Coca-Cola, mate, or a Pepsi, as Suicidal said. The Ossuary Lens does mark your return as the lead vocalist. What was it like working on this new album compared to the previous ones you've done with all the changes you made?
You know, it was cool in the sense that like the passion was reignited. There was a lot more passion there because of the kind of sobriety and such and clearer thinking. So that was so cool to see and feel. The routine that kind of came into play over the last like 3 albums that I was not a part of, that just became more refined and such. So by the time that we were ready to record this thing, we were primed and ready to go. So it was like by far the most preparation I've ever had, or we've ever had with any album. And then you know, on top of that, it was just something that I was a little bit more passionate about, or a lot more passionate about, considering a couple things. One, the new perspective, and two, you know, the vocalist before me, Riley, he really introduced this like introspective vibe to Allegion, which was something I was always screaming for in the past, because that's how I connect emotionally to music. And you know, it's been for the most part a scientific-esque based band and such. And so going into this album to be able to really stretch that muscle and try the introspective stuff I've been dying to do forever, and then also, you know, to touch on these rooted, like deep rooted Allegion notes, that is the science topics and stuff. You know, it was remarkable in that sense, but it was also remarkable in the sense that this is the first time in my history with the band that we all were just like okay with each other's inputs. We were getting along. We weren't like bickering over little things, bullshit, things that don't matter. It was just cohesive, bro. So it's like the depth of the music, you can tell that we were locked in. I just think that like in my history with Allegion, this will be the most pivotal record we have, other than elements of my era. Granted, I do praise Damnum very highly because it's such a fucking cool record. But yeah, I'm stoked.
Damn straight. And Driftwood is kind of the first single off of this album. Tell me a little bit about this single, because from what I've read, it does hold a significance to the band and to the journey so far.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of things there. When we first got together for a writing retreat, since we all live in different states and different countries, we all fly into one zone, you know, a few months prior to recording, and then tear everything up, and then pick and choose what we want to keep, and then kind of like the pre-planning of everything. And then as we go in to record it, we also tear it up with Dave Otero, the producer, engineer gentleman. And then, you know, restructure it so he's well versed in what it sounds like, we're well versed in what it sounds like, and what we're aiming for. Driftwood, from the writing retreat, was picked as a single. And really, I mean, I'm kind of a thief, because Boo Boo, the bass player, wrote, you know, all those riffs and stuff, and I kind of just stole that lead, that singing part. It was just, out of the whole album, listening to the demos, it was the part that tugged on my heartstrings and made my heart cry a little bit. And again, that's like how I connect with music. That's what makes it important. So I leaned into that, and I really couldn't get that melody out of my head. So I stole it. And then we kind of decided in the studio, maybe we should do something else with the guitars. But you know, that answered a lot of questions with like the clean singing bullshit, and kind of where we're going to go with that. But that's definitely strategy, dude. That song, I mean, I love pop music. I love shit that has a hook. So to me, that's something I always wanted to do. So I'm just like so thrilled that it finally happened.
Yeah, I was chatting to someone about a month or so ago about this. I said you'd be surprised how many heavy metal dudes actually get into pop. I do as well, because some of those hooks you just can't fuck with it, and to be able to bring kind of those hooks and those layers into some heavy metal stuff, it bloody works really well. And you did mention Dave. You worked with him again. He's a longtime producer, worked with you guys for quite a while now. What's it like working with Dave as well, and what makes this collaboration so special between Allegaeon and Dave?
Since Dave has been such a huge part of the band's history and such, you know, out of the 7 albums we've done, even the EP as well, we've only done one elsewhere. and that was early in the career. And so our relationship outside of that, even like, since we, Mike and I live in Colorado, so does Dave, we kind of rub shoulders here and there at shows and stuff. So the friendship's there, right? So it's like, in my experience, granted, I guess I've worked with Dave mostly, but when you're kind of jumping into a new studio or you're learning new personalities and stuff, there's different ways that, their advice or, how you guys communicate back and forth, it can be a little distant and feel a little uneasy. Whereas in Dave, we troll the fuck out of him. He trolls the fuck out of us. It's cool. Like, it's always laughs. There's never a dull moment. So it's really beyond that, like, sixth band member. It's like, this dude is a true friend and we can count on him for things, and he can do the same for us. And I hope he feels that way and knows that. The dude is he's like a Legion's best friend.
Yeah, and if it ain't broke, don't fucking fix it. That's for sure. Can you tell me about some of the themes that kind of influenced and inspired you for the Ossuary Lens and making this album?
So it was kind of in hindsight that when we were deciding what the album title was going to be, we were like, what should we call this? And it was only then that I was like kind of going through all the lyrics, and I was like, well, I am literally talking about death or some perspective of it or some touch of it in every song. So like, an ossuary makes sense. And this is also different viewpoints of death. There's things that range from chaos theory, dark matter, to touch on the scientific topics and such, to more introspective stuff like driftwood or wake circling above, which is kind of like the sobriety wagon. Or like, one thing is like, there's a song called Carried by Delusion, and I don't think a lot of people understand it, because whenever I explain it to them, I always get kind of a dumb face. But in my life, like, I think big, like, I'm like, okay, let's have that conversation with Lady Gaga. And when other people are like, the fuck are you talking about, man? That is unachievable. You cannot do that. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's, 6 degrees of separation. I'll figure it out. Like, I don't have limitations in my brain. It's like a Kanye West syndrome, which I don't mind. And, but I kind of like think of it like delusion. Like, I'm almost delusional to some people, but I'm carried by it. And that's kind of what got me through life, is always having this big picture fucking mentality. So that's why I'm able to achieve sick shit, like doing the Allegiance stuff, which is, I'm 40 years old. I play in a death metal band. It's sick. It's sick as fuck.
I know. And then back in 2009, you're probably like, oh, fuck, man, and I'm going to do this. And then we're sitting here in 2025, and it's like, you're actually doing it. I kind of really connect with that, because my start in the media game, I was the same. It was always big for me, heavy metal and music growing up. It was always my therapy, bands like yourself, and you know what I mean? And then I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then 10 years later, I've interviewed you. I've interviewed everyone from Soulfly to Fear Factory to Immolation to everybody in between. And it's always a joy. And I think people can kind of get a fucking lesson from that as well. Don't sit around waiting for life to fucking happen. Get out there and attack it. And also with the themes of death, I really connected with that, because when you go through near-death experiences, or you're facing death and you need to make changes in your life and you start questioning your own mortality. I'm sitting in remission now after a year of battling stage 4 cancer, and I've been a year in remission. So for albums like this that do tackle about death and talk about death, it really kind of bloody hits home for me as well.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, dude.
When you were near that, when you were really in the deep dark of that, did you ever find yourself getting more comfortable with the idea of death?
Yes, no, yeah, dude. Comfortable with the fact that I may die, that I didn't want to die. Like, the doctors told me at the start I probably wouldn't make it, and at the end of it all, he's like, man, I'm not surprised you're struggling. We didn't think you'd get through. But every day you're going through something like that, you just face death straight in the eye, and you just keep pushing on, dude. Another day of chemo, another day of radio. And I was lucky enough that through what I do and chatting to people like yourself, I was able to raise a bit more awareness of cancer in our community and the problems that go along with it as well, because it's important to be able to talk about these things like your sobriety, mental health, battles with cancer, death,
Yeah.
life, because I don't believe there's enough conversations in the heavy metal community about this and letting people know that it is fucking okay. That, you know, Ezra struggles with it, I struggle with it, and just about everybody in the fucking world struggles with it, and it is okay to kind of talk about it.
Well, firstly, congratulations on where you're at now, and secondly, I that kind of brings my mind to peace a little bit, because there was a couple times where I found myself in some sticky situations in like ICU or intensive care unit, and looking
Yep.
kind of, death in the eyes. And it was just always so weird to me that it was like, you fear it, you fear it, you fear it. And then when it's like kind of there, then it's like, wait, I'm like warm and comfortable with this fucking idea. That,
Yep.
or it's the morphine. I can't tell.
Yeah, and just being okay. I think you just get to that point of your life and you go, man, you know what I mean? It's and just start
Yeah.
thinking about your loved ones. I'm going to fight for them, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where are we up to now, dude? I got kind of lost there. Kind of, how does it feel, man? Kind of come back to kind of the aggressive vocal style with you, mate, after 5 years, and kind of has your sound evolved at all since the last album, or is there anything you're doing on this one different?
Like logically speaking, I feel like that was great for me, because taking 7 years off and not singing death metal during that period, it kind of revitalized my throat, my voice. Getting back on the saddle again, that's when I was kind of like, okay, maybe I should start thinking about this a little bit more. Like Riley is such a fucking phenomenal singer. It's like those are some big ass shoes, and he did a wonderful job of fucking getting in my shoes and breaking them. And then so I was like, oh shit, I gotta kind of work on some things. But as far as like getting back into it, dude, like the scientific thing, I think it was just like really good for me. And as far as like getting back in the studio, I had this like, it might be because Iridescent and Inhumation were released earlier.
Yep.
So that was like kind of getting the studio jitters out again. But for some reason, when I went in for the Ossuary Lens, it's without a doubt my best vocal performance. I'm not talking about the clean shit. I'm just talking about like aggressive death metal stuff. And it's because you can hear I was calmer. I wasn't so excited. And I was much more controlled, and I was consciously being like, okay, this part up here needs to be like seething and fucking have those little details and stuff. So I was like way more conscious of that, rather than just being like nervous and like, screaming in a studio. This was like the most collected I've ever been while recording.
Yeah, and we get to 40, I think everything kind of starts clicking into bloody place. I was talking to someone, they're like, oh, I'm 30. And I'm like, 40, 30 is good. It starts rolling into place. Wait till you get to 40. It starts really clicking in. You start getting motivated. You start getting comfortable with who you are as a person and everything else as well. Are there any particular tracks on this album that kind of hold a special significance for you personally? If so, why?
So Driftwood, of course, because the content of it, that was like a very nice way to get out everything I had from that time period of my life. But I would say like the most monumental one, dude, because like for the longest time, my favorite song was Genocide for Praise from Elements of the Infinite. But the way that we close this album is awesome to me, because it's like a monumental, like I just fucking moved this mountain. I just surpassed everything I needed to do. It's called Scythe. And it's kind of honing in on like this feeling I've always had, where to talk about that death. I've always felt like it's kind of been just chasing me. People have a devil and a angel. I've always just had like a little grim reaper being like, when you're going to fuck up. Like, and so it's really just kind of taking that death that follows me, and then essentially kind of throughout my growth and my sobriety, my journey and all that bullshit, it was really kind of taking that, growing enough to be like, okay, you dumb bitch, give me that scythe. I'm Grim Reaper now. You can't, stop it. kind of booting that. So it's like almost a victorious moment. So I don't know, like to me, that song is like as close to my soul as anything could be. So I think that one for sure takes my number one spot for favorite song and to the most emotionally driven song that I've done.
Damn straight. It's a great way to end the bloody album. The Ossuary Lens does drop April 4th through Metal Blade Records. This is one you're all going to want to fucking get. Till then, chuck some Allegaeon in the stereo. Driftwood latest single. The neighbours are going to want to hear this too, so crank it up really bloody loud. Ezra, any last words, shout outs, thank yous, or anything else you'd like to add in there, my friend?
Catch us this spring real soon here, not even a month away, on the Vortex of Violence tour with Warbringer, Skeletal Remains, and Summoning the Lich. That's throughout North America. We got laser focus on Europe this fall, as well as Australia and Japan are definitely being heavily talked about right now. So keep the ears and the eyes peeled, and we hope to see y'all soon.
Cheers, mate. Can't wait to see you down under. Thank you very much.
Oi, you're tuned in to Jai That Aussie Metal Guy, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his sick content. And remember, stay brutal, you legend.